My wife cheated with her boss and then faked a pregnancy to cover it up. But I found out she's hidden $250, $0 in offshore accounts, and now we're fighting over our inherited $1.2 million estate. I feel like I've been betrayed by everyone I trusted. Hello, everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife, Emily, turned out to be a complete nightmare behind my back. You know that feeling when everything seems fine, and then suddenly the ground shifts beneath your feet? That's exactly what happened to me. It all started with small things, little changes in her behavior, secretive texts, late nights that she brushed off as work. But I ignored the signs because I wanted to believe in us. I mean, we'd been together for over 10 years and she always seemed like the perfect wife, bitchy at times, sure, but fiercely loyal, or so I thought. The first real red flag was when I noticed her phone kept disappearing. She'd go to the bathroom and stay there for a long time, and I'd hear muffled voices. I caught her in a lie about a dinner with her boss, Mark, claiming they were just discussing a new project at her office. But I found her phone one night when she forgot to take it with her to bed. The messages weren't just work-related. They were flirtatious, full of "can't wait to see you" and "you're driving me crazy." That was my first real clue that something was off. I also noticed her spending more money, expensive dinners, jewelry, clothes I didn't recognize. She brushed it off, calling it her new boss gift or a bonus from work. Yeah, right. Then came the day I decided to check her email. I know, invasion of privacy, but I was desperate. I found receipts for offshore accounts, hidden, unreported accounts with over $250, $0 tucked away. My stomach dropped. How could she hide that much money? What was she planning? I felt betrayed, furious, and completely blind. I'd always trusted her, and now I saw a whole different side, greedy, manipulative, and lying through her teeth. That's when I started putting the pieces together. She faked a pregnancy to cover her affair with Mark, claiming she was scared of losing the baby, but I knew better. She was just trying to buy time, hide her tracks. I confronted her that night. I told her I knew everything: the affair, the offshore accounts, the pregnancy lie. Her face twisted with rage and contempt. She called me paranoid, insecure, and accused me of not trusting her. She said I was overreacting, that Mark was just a work friend, and that I was imagining things. She even had the nerve to say I was jealous, that I didn't understand her, but I saw through her lies. She was a bitch, a manipulative bitch, and I couldn't believe I married someone so deceitful. I was devastated. I felt like I'd been betrayed by everyone I trusted: my wife, her boss, even my own instincts. How did I miss all these signs? How did it come to this? I didn't sleep that night, replaying everything in my head, trying to make sense of what I'd just learned. After that confrontation, everything changed. I couldn't look at Emily the same way. The woman I married, the one I shared my life and trust with, had been lying to my face for months, probably longer. The affair with Mark was just the tip of the iceberg. Now I knew about the offshore accounts, the fake pregnancy, the money she'd been hiding. It felt like I was living in some twisted nightmare, but I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. I had to figure out what to do next. The first thing I did was dig deeper into her financials. I hired a private investigator to look into those offshore accounts. Turns out, she'd been funneling money into these hidden accounts for years, probably since we got married. It was around $250, $0, just sitting there, untouched. I couldn't believe she'd risk everything for some affair and a lie about a baby. The betrayal ran so deep I started questioning everything about our life together. How many nights had she spent with Mark? How long had she been planning this deception? The more I uncovered, the more I realized I'd been played like a fool. Meanwhile, Emily kept up her act, acting hurt, crying, pretending to be the victim. She said I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, and that I had no right to invade her privacy. She called me controlling and accused me of not trusting her because I was insecure, but I knew better. I saw her true colors now. She lied about everything, even her own pregnancy, which I later found out was a complete fake. She faked the ultrasound photos, bought fake belly bump photos online, and even had a fake doctor's note. I was sickened by how far she'd gone to cover her tracks, to keep her affair and her secrets hidden. I also started to feel a strange mix of anger and sadness. I was angry at her for betraying me, for lying and cheating. But I was also heartbroken. How could someone I loved and trusted do this to me? I'd poured everything into our marriage, and it was all a lie. The worst part was knowing she'd been manipulating me, playing the innocent victim while she was out screwing her boss and hiding millions. It made me question everything about my life. I started to think about the estate we inherited, $1, $2 million, and how she was probably planning to take her cut, or maybe she already had. The thought of losing everything, including what was rightfully mine, fueled my desire for justice. I knew I couldn't just walk away from this. I had to do something. I started plotting my next move. I wanted her to feel what it was like to be betrayed, to be lied to and manipulated. I decided I'd confront her again, but this time with all the evidence. I wanted her to see I wasn't going to be played anymore. I also reached out to my lawyer to understand my rights regarding the offshore accounts and the estate. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. I was furious, but I knew I had to be strategic. I couldn't let her see how much she'd hurt me, not yet. I needed her to believe I was still the naive husband she could manipulate, then I'd strike back hard. That's when I realized this wasn't just about cheating anymore. It was about money, power, and control. And I was ready to take it all back from her. So after digging into her finances and realizing just how deep her lies went, I knew I had to play this carefully. Emily was a master at manipulation, and I wasn't about to let her think she had the upper hand. I waited a few days, letting her think she'd gotten away with everything, her affair, her fake pregnancy, hiding millions in offshore accounts. Meanwhile, I was gathering every piece of evidence I could find, making sure I had a solid case before I made my move. During those days, Emily became more bitchy, more controlling. She'd snap at me over the smallest things, accuse me of not trusting her, call me paranoid again. It was like she was trying to push me away to make me feel guilty for suspecting her. But I didn't fall for it. I knew her game now. I started documenting everything, her lies, her secret texts, the withdrawals from her offshore accounts. I even hired a forensic accountant to trace the money trail. Turns out she'd been planning to leave with at least $250, $0, maybe more, once she thought she'd covered her tracks enough. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. I decided to confront her again, but this time with everything laid out on the table. I sat her down in the living room and dumped all the evidence I'd collected: screenshots of her secret texts with bank statements showing the offshore accounts, the fake ultrasound photos, and the fake doctor's note. Her face went pale. She tried to deny everything at first, but I cut her off. I told her I knew about the affair, the money, the pregnancy lie, and I was done being played. Her reaction was classic. She started screaming, calling me crazy, saying I was trying to ruin her life. She told me I was paranoid, that Mark was just a friend, that I was jealous and insecure. She even had the nerve to say she loved me and that she'd never cheat, that I was just imagining things. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her I'd had enough of her lies and I was filing for divorce. I wanted to see her try to spin her way out of this one. I also made it clear that I was taking control of the finances, including the offshore accounts, and that I was going to fight for my share of the inheritance. I wanted her to understand that I wasn't going to be a victim anymore. That night, she stormed out of the house, crying and yelling about how I was ruining everything. I felt a strange mix of relief and rage. Relief because I finally had proof and a plan. Rage because I'd been so blind for so long. I knew she'd fight me on everything. She was a bitchy, manipulative woman who'd do anything to keep her secrets hidden. But I wasn't going down without a fight. I'd spent years building my career, earning what I had, and I wasn't going to let her walk away with more than her fair share, especially after everything she'd done. In the days that followed, I contacted my lawyer and started the divorce proceedings. I also filed a claim to freeze her offshore accounts so she couldn't just drain the money before I could get my cut. I was determined to get what was owed to me and to make her pay for her lies. It was a brutal, emotional process, seeing her try to manipulate her way out of it, hearing her scream that I was ruining her life. But I knew I had the truth on my side. This was the beginning of the end of her control over me, and I was ready to fight for what was mine. The divorce process was anything but smooth. Emily, true to form, turned into a real bitchy nightmare. She started throwing accusations, claiming I was trying to ruin her life just because I found out about her affair, her fake pregnancy, and the offshore accounts. She insisted she was innocent, that Mark was just a friend, and that all the money she'd hidden was just her bonus from work. She also tried to spin the story that her pregnancy was real, even going so far as to fake tears and plead with me to believe her. But I wasn't buying any of her lies anymore. She hired her own lawyer, of course, and the fight escalated quickly. She demanded a huge settlement, more than her fair share of the estate, claiming she deserved it because she worked hard for everything. She also tried to use the fake pregnancy as leverage, saying she'd go public with it if I didn't give her what she wanted. I knew she was bluffing, but it was clear she was desperate to keep her secrets hidden. Meanwhile, I pushed hard to freeze her offshore accounts and secure my rights to the inheritance. I didn't want her draining the money or hiding it somewhere else before I could get my hands on it. The worst part was seeing her face when I told her I was going to take control of everything. Her bitchy attitude turned into pure anger. She called me paranoid, insecure, and accused me of trying to ruin her reputation. She even said I was jealous of her success, which made me want to punch her, but I kept my cool. I knew her game. She was trying to manipulate the situation, to turn everything around and make me look like the bad guy. I had all the evidence, and I was prepared to fight her in court. Over the next few weeks, the legal battles intensified. I found out she'd already moved a chunk of the offshore money into a different account, probably trying to hide it from me. I also learned she'd been secretly consulting with Mark, planning to leave with him once she'd cleaned out her share of the estate. That made me even more furious. I realized she'd been scheming for months, maybe even years, to cheat her way out of our marriage and steal what she could. I was sickened by her greed and her ability to lie so convincingly, but I was determined not to let her get away with it. Throughout it all, I felt betrayed on every level. I trusted her, loved her, built a life with her, and she was out there lying, cheating, and hiding millions from me. It felt like everything I'd believed in was a lie. The estate, the life we built, none of it felt real anymore. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. This was a wake-up call. I realized I'd let her manipulate me for too long. Now I was fighting back, not just for my money but for my dignity. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Emily was a bitchy, manipulative woman and she wasn't going to go quietly. But I was ready for the battle. I'd come too far to back down now. The court hearings were a nightmare. Emily's lawyer was good, slick, manipulative, and relentless. She tried every trick in the book to turn the judge against me, claiming I was paranoid, that I was trying to control her, that she deserved a bigger cut of the estate because she sacrificed so much. Meanwhile, I had mountains of evidence, bank statements, offshore account details, her fake ultrasound photos, and her texts with Mark. Every piece of proof painted her as a liar and a schemer. Emily's attitude was even worse in court. She sat there with that bitchy smirk, throwing shade at me, trying to look innocent. She insisted that the affair was just harmless flirting, that her pregnancy was real, and that I was just jealous because I couldn't handle her success. She called me insecure, controlling, and said I was trying to ruin her reputation. I wanted to punch her, but I kept my composure. I knew how to play this game now. I told the judge everything, the offshore accounts, the money she'd hidden, her lies about the pregnancy, everything. I laid out the evidence and made it clear I wanted my fair share of the estate, plus the money she'd been hiding. The judge took his time, reviewing all the evidence, and it was clear he wasn't buying Emily's story. After a few tense days, he ruled in my favor. He ordered the offshore accounts frozen and awarded me a significant portion of the estate, more than enough to cover what I believed I was owed. Emily's reaction was priceless. She went ballistic, screaming and crying, trying to argue her way out of it. But the judge was firm. He saw through her manipulations and knew she'd been lying for months. Once the court decision was final, I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders. I finally had control over the money, over the house, over my own life again. Emily, of course, refused to accept it. She tried to blackmail me, threatening to make everything public to ruin my reputation if I didn't give her more. But I was done playing her games. I had everything I needed now: proof, a legal victory, and a plan to rebuild my life. I also arranged to have her legally barred from accessing the offshore accounts, ensuring she couldn't drain the money before I could get my share. The aftermath was messy. Emily moved out, furious and bitter. She kept texting me, calling me a controlling bastard and claiming I'd ruined her life. But honestly, I felt nothing but relief. I finally saw her for what she really was: a manipulative, greedy woman who'd lied and cheated her. Way through our marriage, I realized I'd been a fool to trust her for so long. Still, I knew I had to move on. I cut all ties, changed my phone number, and started focusing on rebuilding my life. I learned a lot from this whole mess: about trust, about greed, and about how far some people will go when they're willing to betray everything for money and a lie. Now I'm just trying to put the pieces back together. The inheritance is secured and I've started fresh. It's not easy, but I know I'm better off without her. If there's one thing I'd tell anyone reading this: trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, dig deeper. Because sometimes the people you love the most are the ones capable of the worst betrayals. Looking back now, I realize how much I was blind to for so many years. I thought I knew Emily: her bitchy attitude, her sharp tongue, her constant need for control. But beneath all that, she was a master manipulator, hiding her true nature behind a veneer of charm and success. The affair, the fake pregnancy, the offshore money, all of it was her way of trying to rewrite her story. At my expense. And I let her because I didn't want to see the truth. I wanted to believe in the woman I married, in our life together. But that belief was just a facade. The biggest lesson I've learned is that trust isn't something to take for granted. It's fragile, and once broken, it's nearly impossible to repair. I also learned that some people will go to extraordinary lengths to get what they want: money, status, control, no matter who they hurt in the process. Emily was a perfect example of that. She was willing to lie, cheat, fake a pregnancy, and manipulate her way out of everything just to keep her secrets and her greed alive. Getting everything sorted out legally was a huge relief, but it also came with a lot of emotional scars. I've had to come to terms with the fact that the woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, was capable of such deception. It's been a brutal wake-up call, but it's also made me stronger. I've learned to be more cautious, more guarded. I won't be so quick to trust again, not without proof. And I'll never ignore my instincts the way I did before. Now I focus on rebuilding my life, financially, emotionally, and mentally. The inheritance is secure, and I've started to regain my confidence. I've also cut ties with Emily completely. No more calls, no more texts. I've blocked her from my life because I know she'll never change. She's a manipulative, bitchy woman who only cared about herself. And honestly, I don't regret ending it. I've gained clarity, and I've learned that sometimes the best revenge is simply walking away and reclaiming your peace. To anyone out there going through something similar, trust your gut. Don't ignore the red flags, no matter how much you love someone or want to believe in their goodness. People are capable of terrible things when they're driven by greed and ego. Be vigilant, protect yourself, and never let anyone lie to you or manipulate you into staying silent. Because in the end, the truth always comes out. And when it does, it's better to face it head on than to keep living in someone else's lie. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I'm done with betrayal and deception. I deserve better, and I'm finally on my way to finding it.